Well, it just keeps getting worse, and we have the inflation timeline to show you. Joining me right now is the Oklahoma Congressman Kevin Hern. He's a member of the House Ways and Means Committee. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks very much. What should be done about this sky-high inflation from your standpoint? Joe Biden keeps blaming Vladimir Putin on everything.
Well, Maria, thanks for having me. You know, this president has one failed policy after another, and then he wonders why we have the highest inflation that we've seen in over 40 years since I was in high school. And, you know, he's wondering, you know, why the American people aren't buying it. Democrats are concerned. They know they're going to get crushed this fall. He continues to blame Putin. The American people know that prices were rising long before the Ukrainian war. And he's looking for everything he can. So, you know, the proverbial throw it against the wall and see what will happen. And now, you know, just yesterday, he's talking about introducing E15 through the summer months when we're going to have a food supply because of Russia and Ukraine's 30 to 40% of the world economy on corn and wheat. And he's just kicking the can down the road. Democrats are going to get crushed, and they should for their poor leadership.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, Biden is talking about inflation and blaming Putin, but we have the timeline of inflation. And when Joe Biden walked into the White House in January of 2021, inflation was at 1.4%, okay? By March of 2021, it went to 2.6% because he signed in the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. By the time July 21 rolled around, Democrats were proposing a $5 trillion spending package, and that sent inflation up to 5.4%. By the time November 2021 rolled around, Biden was signing a $1 trillion infrastructure package, and the inflation rate was zoomed up to 6.8%. And then in February and March, of course, that's when we have the invasion, which then took inflation to 7.9%, and it's only getting worse. Yesterday, we saw consumer inflation at 8.5%, and today we're looking at a producer price index of 10.6%. Even Joe Manchin, a Democrat, is slamming the administration for this slow response on inflation. He writes, "When will this end? It is a disservice to the American people to act as if inflation is a new phenomenon. The American people deserve the truth about why record inflation is happening." Former Council of Economic Advisors Chairman Kevin Hassett was with me yesterday. He is also blaming this administration and Joe Biden. Watch.
The fact is that inflation is double digits. It's double digits because of Joe Biden's policies, and they're not going to really, even the Fed is not going to be able to put a handle on this for quite some time.
And Congressman, the Wall Street Journal this morning writes, this is not Putin's inflation. The editorial board goes through exactly what I just went through. You're an elected official. What can you do about it?
Well, first of all, we got to get our spending under control. It's out of control. When you look at Biden's budget he put out a couple of weeks ago, $73 trillion in spending over the next decade, $55 trillion in revenue. So we're going to have a $20 trillion addition to our debt over the next 10 years. You can't keep doing this. I chair the budget committee on the Republican Study Committee. And when you look at this and you take legislation that's already been introduced by members of Congress, we introduced some 300 pieces of legislation in this budget that we can balance the budget in under 7 years. I did it last year, the only budget that's been created since Nancy Pelosi's been put in office again in 2019. And then we're going to do the budget again this year that will be out sometime early May, and it will balance in less than 7 years. So we know that we can balance our budget and rein in this incredible inflation we're seeing right now across America, that what's crushing the pocketbooks of everyday American, regardless of your politics. And so we know what we have to do. Stop spending, rein in our out-of-control, balanced budget problems we're having out there. The Americans are demanding it. They want it to be done. And this president is going completely in the opposite direction with his incredibly ridiculous policies, the energy crisis he's created, the southern border crisis that he thinks he's doing a great job of, that we know is just going to be worse this year.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the budget, $5.8 trillion budget. Do you believe it's going to pass? Because, you know, I mean, you look at the 20% increase that he's earmarking for the IRS and compare that to the 4% increase in defense spending, which is, of course, as we all know, a decline because it's not keeping up with inflation. I don't get this. I mean, you know, not only are we seeing the cost of everything go up, the inflation is at a 40-year high, we also have the Federal Reserve coming in. They're raising interest rates. That's going to raise the cost of borrowing for everybody. And in this budget, Joe Biden is telling us he's going to raise our taxes. I mean, do we really want more pressure on top of all of this in this budget? Is it going to pass? And yesterday he's authorizing the sale of E15 gas, a gasoline that uses 15% ethanol blend, Congressman. So I guess corn is good, oil is bad. I don't understand the priorities.
Well, not only that, Maria, when you look at the E15, the subsidies required from the federal government, it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. I think upwards of $800 million of subsidies to be able to produce the ethanol, because it won't pay for itself. And so this president and the Socialist Democrats, what they believe the answer is you go buy an electric car. We saw his energy secretary say that this wouldn't even be an issue if the American people just go buy a $60,000 electric car. In this budget, he removes the $45 billion from the oil and gas industry, taxes them $45 billion to further try to destroy our fossil fuel industry. Meanwhile, he's dealing with the dictators in Iran and Venezuela to make up the difference. It's just insane, the policy at the White House.
And by the way, he's negotiating on this Iran nuclear deal that will enrich Russian companies. Okay, the Russian nuclear companies are standing to make billions on a return to the Iran deal as they work with Iran. Congressman, we'll be watching it all and putting a spotlight on it, and we appreciate your time this morning. Kevin Hern, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Maria.
We appreciate it.